US President Donald Trump announced this Wednesday evening he's named Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy to be the new NASA interim administrator, effectively replacing Janet Petro, who was, until now, NASA's acting administrator. The change in NASA leadership takes place over a month since the president announced he had pulled the nomination of Jared Isaacman for NASA administrator, tech billionaire and entrepreneur, pilot and two-time commander of SpaceX's Crew Dragon spacecraft. So far. That decision was announced just days before Isaacman's nomination was to be voted on by the Senate, and mere hours after the end of Elon Musk's role as a special government employee. At the time, Trump had cited prior associations as part of his reason to rescind that nomination. The president later confirmed this was related to past donations that Isaacman gave to certain members of the Democratic Party, even though those had already been declared by Isaacman months in advance. Jared's response to that removal was rather measured, citing in a post on X at the time his thanks to Trump for the opportunity and keeping his support for the president. Follow-up reactions from Isaacman to some of the events that took place, for example between Musk and Trump, were also in a similar vein. Overall, despite that decision, Isaacman has remained supportive of the administration. For example, recently the US president confirmed that it was indeed Elon Musk who proposed Jared for NASA administrator, expressing also concerns about the potential for a conflict of interest between the two of them. Yet, in response to that, Jared agreed that the president was, quote, entitled to assemble the leadership team he believes will best serve his administration. He also cited that the only problem now was that this left NASA without a confirmed leader. So this latest move by the Trump administration to name Sean Duffy as new interim NASA administrator could in fact be in part to address both of these issues. The now former NASA acting administrator Janet Petro took that spot on January 20th after the previous Biden-appointed administrator Bill Nelson had resigned. But Petro served NASA as a civil servant, having previously been the director of NASA's Kennedy Space Center, rather than as someone from Trump's own cabinet. In response to the new appointment, Isaacman in fact noted this, saying, quote, short of a new nominee, this was a great move. NASA needs political leadership from someone the president trusts and has confidence in. So for now, until a NASA administrator is nominated and confirmed, Sean Duffy will take the reins of the agency, serving double duty. In response to getting the new job, the Secretary of Transportation posted on X that he was honored to accept this mission and that, quote, it's time to take over space. Let's launch. Now, this change in leadership also comes at a rather turbulent moment in time for the agency. Just last week, Congress passed the so-called Big Beautiful Bill that introduced almost $10 billion in additional money for NASA to spend in the next few years on top of the future NASA appropriations. However, those future NASA appropriations are also prompting quite the discussion due to the proposed reductions to NASA's science budget in the presidential budget request released in May. This week, all living former heads of science at NASA sent a letter to members of the House Appropriations Committee and the House Commerce, Justice and Science Subcommittee specifically regarding this issue. In the letter, they request Congress to maintain funding for NASA science and not approve the proposed cuts, citing that, quote, to do otherwise would be to cede US leadership in space and science to China and other nations. But even if those cuts aren't approved by Congress, the damage may already have been done. Ever since February of this year, NASA has been running a deferred resignation program as a means to reduce the workforce voluntarily and prevent a forced firing of officials under a reduction in force program. This week, reports have come out that as part of this program, at least over 2,000 officials may be leaving NASA at the end of the fiscal year. The departure of these employees is not uniform across all NASA centers, and at some of these centers, the agency may be in fact forced to apply a reduction in force to meet the administration's goal of the reduction of the workforce. NSF understands that even apart from all of those actions, several senior officials at different NASA programs have been suggested to retire early at the end of the year, even if they did not apply to the deferred resignation program. So, taking all of this into account, there's a good chance that several of NASA's programs will be affected due to a lack of staffing, even if their funding levels are secured for the next year. We'll be following up on this story and many others over the coming weeks and months, so to stay up to date, keep an eye on NSF socials and nasaspaceflight.com. I've been Caton for NSF, thanks for watching, and goodbye.